Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this week's edition of Tales from the Audience. That's you guys. This would not be possible without you. None of this, not this channel or anything. So, this is your opportunity to flex your writing muscles and submit something, and just maybe I'll be able to narrate it for you. Last week, we had a combo of a SCP story or a story dice writing prompt, either or both, and we got some submissions this week, which is awesome. Thank you all for those who submitted. Now, there is a teeny tiny itty bitty little problem here. One of the top stories submitted was a Warhammer related story, which, in principle, I have zero problem with narrating. However, having said that, Games Workshop does have a problem with me narrating it. They're currently on the warpath, nuking channels that are thinking about doing Warhammer content, so unfortunately, I won't be able to do that one. However, the next place is a tie between two stories, so I shall read those two stories, and then we'll do the word prompt afterwards, just like last week. I'd quickly like to thank the following Tier 5 patrons and channel members for supporting the channel: Datamagnet, Bob the Dragon, and Sergeant Boomer. Thank you very much. Story title: The Pyramid Battle. Written by Calabo13. The dice used were 1, 2, 6, 9, and 10. Story: among the dozens of races of the Galactic Council, only humans and the Well-War could inhabit the Earth-like planets. However, the rarity of these planets meant that they were highly coveted. Many wars had been fought between the humans and the Welver over who got which planet. But they had come to a more peaceful solution to these problems. Each race would attempt to build a series of great monuments on a planet that they wanted, and whoever built their monuments first would own that planet. For humanity, these monuments were the 7 wonders of the ancient world. While attacks of their other species were technically not allowed, it was still somewhat common. Johnny stood on top of the great lighthouse and scanned the plain below with his binoculars. The Welver were almost certain to attack tonight because the final human wonder, the Great Pyramid, was on the track to be completed the next day. But if the Welver could destroy the last of the great cranes that were lifting the stones to the top of the pyramid, it would take weeks to complete. Earlier that week, an attack had disabled 3 of the 4 cranes, with the Welver using a significant cybernetic enhancements to fry their electronics. As Johnny turned towards the Temple of Artemis, he spotted 3 small figures that looked like rabbit-dog hybrids, casting shadows in the light from the White House. They were Welver, a species whose main food source was blood and other mammals. He activated his radio and said, "3 Welver approaching the temple." Johnny continued to watch as the Welver encountered the guards that had been sent to intercept them. As the Welver and the guards fought, Johnny's radio said, "7 more Welver approaching Colossus." Snipers then began to come onto his balcony, and he knew that he should get to the ground so that he could join the fight. As he climbed down the stairs, he heard the reports of a group of 20 Welver near the Hanging Gardens, and a group of 30 near the mausoleum. When Johnny reached the bottom of the lighthouse, he could see the human forces being pushed back by the Welver. He then noticed that one of the Welver had gotten past the human lines and had a clear run at the last crane. Johnny rushed towards it and tackled the Welver just before it reached the base of the crane. But the Welver's cybernetic limbs would overpower Johnny quickly if he didn't do something quickly. So he looked at the Welver in the eyes and said, "Do I look tasty to you?" The Welver started drooling, ripping Johnny's throat open with its jaws, and started drinking his blood. The last thing Johnny saw before his world went black was a Welver falling to a sniper's bullet. End of story. The second one, with the same amount of votes, is a hybrid between the dice and the SCP, using dice 1, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9, as well as the SCP-088. Title: My Last Message Home. Written by Amelia Rose Aldridge. Story: This is my last message home. After what transpired on Zorth's forsaken system, I won't be around for much longer. You may be wondering what in Korolak happened for such a legendary explorer such as myself to fall. So, let me tell you about it. I was following the Lighthouse Protocol for finding possible habitable planets, and my radars picked up something. What I saw was beautiful. Some might even call it the perfect planet, the garden world, in the most suitable region for its host star with the perfect atmosphere and gravity. And the resources, by sloth, the resources. I had no choice. I flipped the switch and jumped right into the system and landed on the planet immediately. That was my first mistake. It appears that this planet had held life before. I landed near some building that was disguised using a light-bending cloak device that got picked up on my sensors, with no sign of life. I walked in. What I saw in there brings shivers down my chitinous shell and was my second mistake. I found myself wandering around. Then I found a statue of sorts, partly organic in nature. And the readings, they didn't make any sense. The statue was excreting corrosive material from different areas. And this is when the most terrifying thing happened. It started to fucking move and lunged at me. Trying to escape this thing, it got a hold of one of my appendages and, with a corrosive bite, penetrated my chitin. By the stars, what mad scientist created this creature? There's no way it could be organic. And then, something truly, utterly beyond me. Something so confusing my system's thoughts that they were malfunctioning. An unknown sentient race starts spawning in one by one, as if they had warped in there individually and without a ship. The only thing that crossed my mind, this fucking planet is nothing more than a trap. A trap by sentients we have never even met before. Did they know about us? Just how developed is their technologies? Do they have more creatures like this one chasing me right now? Just what in Korolak is happening in this garden death world? I ran from the facility and went straight into my ship and to the med bay. Sloth knows what was in that bite, but I removed my appendage and replaced it with a robotic one. Better safe than sorry. Rushing to the control room, I thought I could make it. I thought I could finally rid myself of the system. That was until I realized my third mistake. I'd been too optimistic. My systems blocked me from warping home as warning signs blared at the screen. My whole body under attack from whatever was on the planet. I looked at the warnings, confused, until the pain started. A burning pain settled in my body, and I couldn't believe it. The system started flashing a black warning. A black warning! Something reserved for only the most severe of issues. This warning alone stops my warp drives from even activating as a safety precaution. And what it showed was irreversible and extreme rapid gene editing and protein reconstruction. I knew what this meant. Something was changing me from the inside. And the pain was getting worse by the millicycle. So I write this message before I self-destruct the ship as a warning and a plea. Stay away from these coordinates. End of story. And that, my friends, is the end of this week's entries and winners for the story submissions. Now on to the fun part, the word prompt for the next week, which for the SCP is going to be SCP-3624. That's SCP-3624. There will be a link down below taking you to my second channel, which has a reading of that SCP. You can take it and space or cook it up, or HFI it up, or make it more interesting. Surprise the audience. Or you can do dice, which are currently on the screen. Yep, this is me running the dice with special effects. Look at that. No, it's not a smoke machine, it's my humidifier. I decided to take all the stops out and make a good show of this. Anyway, on to the dice. From left to right, top to bottom. Number 1, Shadow Monster. Number 2, Tree. Number 3, Planet. Number 4, Climbing Tree. Number 5, Referee. Number 6, Fossil. Number 7, Team. Number 8, Time or Clock. Number 9 is a fire roast upside down. I didn't correct it for some reason. And number 10 is a robotic enemy. So, there you go. Have fun, enjoy, and remember there are certain rules to this. 1. Post the story down below in the comments section. I will heart it and people will like it, and at the end of the week, the one that has the most likes will be read. Number 2. It has to be safe for work. Number 3. It has to fall into the terms and service of YouTube. Number 4. Has to be less than 2,000 words or thereabouts. Number 5. There may be situational problems with a story, and I reserve the right to not read it if that is the case. Such is what happened this week. And number 7, the most important rule of all. One that you need to remember to the end. Have fun and enjoy. Try, and you never know what'll happen. But if you are somebody who cannot handle criticism, then I would advise not posting your work, as other people will do what they do on the internet and may leave a criticism on your video. And if you can't handle that, I seriously suggest that you don't post, but at least try and write it in your own and have fun doing it. Anyways, that is the end of this week's Tales from the Audience. I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you all next week. Cheers.